A Broken Appointment by Thomas Hardy appeared in his collection Poems of the Past and Present in 1901. On a first reading, the poem appears quite difficult to understand, although we can put this down more to Hardy's long sentences and contorted syntax, or sentence structures, than to the complexity of the ideas that he explores themselves. In the poem, Hardy expresses his disappointment and despair. Not only that the woman he was in love with failed to turn up to a prearranged meeting with him, but also that this failure is in itself evidence of a certain defect in her character, that she felt insufficient compassion for him as another human being to enable her to overcome her reluctance to see him so that she could let him down gently. The poem comprises 2 stanzas of 8 lines each. Interestingly, Hardy makes use of 2 bass meters, iambic dimeter, di-dum, di-dum, for the first and 8th line of both stanzas, and iambic pentameter, di-dum, 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 for the rest, although he does vary this in the penultimate lines of each stanza, which we will explore later. The poem has a rhyme scheme of A, A, B, C, B, C, A, A. The way in which Hardy chooses to enclose each stanza with a rhyming couplet enhances the repetition of the first and final lines and underlines the sense of stasis and being trapped in his emotional pain that is communicated in this poem. Hardy uses direct address to reproach the unnamed lady for her non-appearance, which gives the poem a very intimate feel. He also makes extensive use of enjambment throughout, and caesura, particularly at the end of the first stanza and throughout the second, which serve to modulate the rhythm and communicate the ebb and flow of his thoughts as they wash uncontrollably over him. The way in which lines 3 to 7 of the first stanza are enjambed without any internal punctuation either almost demands that they are read without taking breath, evoking the way in which he is unable to prevent his thoughts from tumbling out. While Hardy's sentences are often long and twisted, his diction, or choice of vocabulary, is actually quite simple, and there is a predominance of monosyllabic words. Hardy uses a range of literary devices such as metaphor, personification, alliteration, and polyptoton, as well as compound nouns and adjectives of his own invention, such as loving-kindness, hope-hour, and time-torn, to make the poem seem even more intensely personal. The title, A Broken Appointment, refers to the way in which the speaker had a pre-arranged meeting for a particular time and a particular place with someone, and that either they or the person they were meeting did not show up. The use of the adjective broken suggests something which cannot be mended and immediately sets a sad tone. To modern ears, the word appointment, used to describe what we later find out was supposed to be a romantic rendezvous, at least in the eyes of the speaker, seems decidedly formal and unromantic in that we usually associate the word with trips to the dentist or the doctor. We mustn't forget, however, that ways of behaving in general and of conducting romantic affairs in particular in the 19th century were much more formal, and the choice of that word may not have seemed so out of place at the time. What it does communicate, however, is that the speaker believes that definite arrangements were made and that these were deliberately broken. The poem begins with the statement, "You did not come." Its bluntness and sense of finality enhanced by Hardy's use of iambic dimeter for this line. The reader now realises that it was the person whom the speaker was supposed to be meeting who broke the appointment, and it is he who has been stood up. In the second line, the speaker reveals that he waited for some time in vain, and marching time drew on. Note the way in which Hardy personifies the abstract noun time here, not only indicated by its capitalisation, but also by the adjective marching, which communicates its inexorability, i.e. the way in which its passing is impossible to prevent, as well as serving to underline Hardy's own sense of helplessness as he waits, at the mercy of forces beyond his control. As time drew on, the waiting and her failure to show up wore me numb. Hardy's use of the verb wore here communicates the way in which he feels that he has been eroded and damaged by her non-appearance. Time has become a physical presence that has metaphorically trodden him down to the point that he's become numb or unfeeling. The dash at the end of the line indicates that he's going to elaborate on the reasons why. The rest of this stanza can seem impenetrable, due not only to Hardy's lack of punctuation, at the ends of lines leading to lines 3 to 7 being enjambed, as well as internally, preventing the reader from pausing and digesting the ideas he is communicating, but also to the fact that his syntax, or sentence structure, seems somewhat twisted about as he has employed a technique known as anastrophe. Anastrophe is where a sentence's structure is turned around or inverted. In other words, sentences usually start with a subject plus a verb, i.e., I grieved. But in a sentence where anastrophe has been used, these are put at the end, in a verb plus subject format, i.e., grieved I. In shorter sentences, anastrophe isn't usually such a problem, as it is fairly easy to mentally switch the subject and verb about. But this is such a long sentence that mental gymnastics are required, and by the time we've got to the end of it and discovered what the subject of the sentence is, i.e. I, and what the verb is, i.e. grieved, we're confused about what it is exactly that he's grieving about in the first place. In order to understand what he's trying to communicate, we're going to put the grieved I bit back where it would go in normal syntax. It now reads, "Yet I grieved less for loss of your dear presence there." Okay, so now we understand that this whole business has caused him immeasurable emotional pain, communicated by the verb grieved. That there's something that's had an even greater impact on him than the fact that she didn't turn up, indicated by the adverb less. The preposition than at the beginning of line 4 indicates that he's going to now tell us what has effectively grieved him more. That I thus found lacking in your make. Here the word make is another word for character or makeup. So he's discovered that she has a character defect, that she simply doesn't have that high compassion which can overbear or overcome reluctance for pure loving kindness' sake. In other words, she's completely lacking in human decency, communicated by the words high compassion and loving kindness' sake, because she couldn't find it in her heart to overcome her unwillingness to meet him in order not to cause him pain. And this has upset him more than the fact that he hasn't seen her. Note the use of pararhyme in line 3 with the sounds of the words less and loss, only differing in their short medial vowel sounds of and o. The almost identical sounds of the two words link them closely to one another and serve to emphasise his point that he has found something even more distressing about the incident than her mere absence. This is not due to any lack of feeling on his part, however, as he still uses the adjective dear to describe her wished-for presence. Note also the alliteration of there, than, that, and thus, the slight awkwardness of articulating the sounds in quick succession, enhancing his sense of agitation. So now we know the reason that the speaker felt all of this grief when, as the hope hour stroked its sum, you did not come. The compound noun hope hour is Hardy's way of expressing either the time of the appointment itself or the passing of an hour as he waited and how he had been desperately looking forward to it. The expression stroked its sum refers to the way in which clocks during the 19th century would chime the hour, i.e. if it was 3 o'clock, the clock would strike a total of 3 times. Even in the digital age, we still use the word stroke when referring to time in expressions such as on the stroke of midnight. If we look closely, we will see that Hardy varies the rhythm in this line, substituting a trochee, dum-dee, in the first foot and a spondee, dum-dum, in the fourth foot for the regulation iambs. Grieved I, when as the hope hour stroked its sum. The result is that not only does Hardy emphasise the depth of his sadness through the stress falling on the verb grieved, but we also get 3 stressed syllables one after the other, which we could argue suggests the sound of the clock striking the hour. The final line of the stanza, in repeating the first line, you did not come, of course means that the rhythm reverts to iambic dimeter and brings the stanza both full circle and to an abrupt halt. The second stanza also begins with another blunt statement in iambic dimeter as he declares, you love not me, and continues, and love alone can lend you loyalty. In other words, it is only possible, he says, to feel loyalty towards someone if you love them, and she has clearly shown that she doesn't love him. Note the alliteration of love, alone, lend and loyalty in this line, which also fall on stressed syllables. The emphasis that this gives each of these words seems to make his judgment of her all the more damning. In the third line, he concedes that I know and knew it. The polyptoton here suggesting that his realisation that she does not love him has not come out of the blue, and the fact that she didn't turn up was not a total surprise. The full stop at the end of the sentence here creates a caesura, forcing the reader to pause. The coordinating conjunction but here introduces a lengthy rhetorical question that extends over 5.5 lines and completes the poem. But, unto the store of human deeds divine in all but name, was it not worth a little hour or more to add yet this? Once you, a woman, came to soothe a time-torn man, even though it be you love not me. Here he's basically saying that there are many human deeds or actions that people have gone out of their way to perform that are divine or godly in nature, if not in name, and that she could, with very little trouble, have added another one to these. Note the juxtaposition of deeds divine and a little hour or more, to contrast the smallness of the price she would have paid for this meeting with the magnitude of its effect. This deed that she could have performed would have been that once you, a woman, came to soothe a time-torn man, even though it be you love not me. Hardy once more creates a compound word, this time an adjective, time-torn. The violence of the metaphor itself and the plosive alliteration of the t sound helping to evoke the way in which the nervous anticipation and endless waiting have caused him extreme emotional pain. Hardy varies the rhythm in the poem's penultimate line with a substitution of a spondee, dum-dum, in the third foot and an anapaest, dididum in the fourth. To soothe a time-torn man, even though it be, creating a hypercatalectic line with 11 syllables. The breakdown of the speaker's emotions in this line is effectively communicated with the extra syllable and the 3 stressed syllables in quick succession. The final line of this stanza echoes the first, effectively bringing it full circle, creating a sense of pathos and wistfulness, as the speaker seems to be in a state of emotional paralysis, unable to comprehend this woman's inability to show compassion for the suffering of another person. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments section below and I'll do my best to answer them. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos on English language topics and exam techniques and English literature texts.